And racially and religiously aggravated offences recorded by police in England and Wales seem to have hit a new high last year. That's according to data from police forces. But are these figures an accurate reflection of what's actually taking place across the country? We'll be discussing this in more detail later on the show with a former Met policeman and our very own Inia Folarin Emanan.
Yes, well, we have all of that coming up and much more. I'm sure she'll forgive you for that. Much more across the programme, and you can get in touch as usual with your views. GBViews at gbnews.uk is the email. We will get to as many of those as we can. But first, Bev gives her views on Brexit 6 years on.
So today marks the 6th anniversary of the Brexit referendum. I was hosting a phone-in radio show at the time. And although the mainstream press would have had us believe that we would never dare vote against our predominantly pro-Remain political establishment, I was in no doubt that you, the public, felt differently. So when I woke up that day and heard the news that we had indeed cut ties with Europe, I was saddened but not surprised. I say saddened because I felt then, in my gut, that being part of such an influential club was beneficial. There was strength in numbers, it felt. With China and parts of Asia swelling into ever greater global superpowers, I believed it felt as though we would be vulnerable alone in trade, security, laws around business regulation that protected employees and made us keep our beaches clean, stuff like that. I no longer feel like that. Overwhelmingly, I felt that I'd like my children to grow up on a continent where they would be free to travel unencumbered, interrailing this summer after exams. But of course, a Wuhan-born virus appeared and every country tore up the notion of free travel, even for healthy young people, with the EU leading the world into more and more inhumane restrictions. I remember getting a call from a tearful friend in Barcelona who had to take her 14-year-old daughter for an mRNA injection she didn't want, just so they could go out to their local restaurants. And boy, has the EU taken COVID and used it to force through technological tracking apps to a new level. Now, the EU Digital Services Act, which will regulate everything from what they call dark patterns and algorithms online. Unlike prior voluntary standards, this DSA has real teeth, power to pose huge fines on platforms and search engines, from a centralised governance exclusively supervised by the European Commission instead of the country of origin. But if the last 2 years has taught us anything, it's that one person's misleading information is another person's fact. There's a crisis response protocol in the Act, which empowers the European Commission to declare a state of emergency and require content removal, political propaganda tinkering by any other name. And how proud they are of their digital green certificate. Not a COVID certificate, of course, although it is based upon your vaccine status, but green because it was never going to end there. What organisation of control would give up such powers? Note the word green. One might even speculate that the next phase of lockdown culture will be to save the planet by dictating where and when citizens can move. Now imagine if we were still part of the EU, we would already be beholden to such an intrusive surveillance nightmare. But thanks to public pressure, our own government took down the page from their website recently. I don't know whether you saw it, advertising for someone to roll out our own COVID pass. So watch this space. But I always think that when the facts change your mind. And I, like many previous Remainers, very much have.
So you're a bit of a convert. Would you consider yourself a convert?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah, I can.
How about you? I don't know. Were you in support of Brexit?
I initially wasn't. For me, the status quo is probably always the safest option to go with. Naturally, that's what I'm like as a person with everything. But eventually, I absolutely was won round to the arguments for Brexit. And for me, it was really that independence and that sovereignty, because I really do believe that nations have to be sovereign, and they have the people elected to govern the country have to have the supremacy to govern the country, which is why, again, I've spoken out against this ECHR decision, for example. And look, I was never in any doubt that there would be complications, and it was a big risk, a constitutional risk, as well as an economic risk. But ultimately, I think I'll look back and say the country probably made the right decision, and it was the biggest vote ever democratically in the UK. So, it was a very legitimate vote.
It's hard to disentangle, isn't it, the economic effects of Brexit, of course, with the COVID pandemic. But so in some ways, no side on this debate can say categorically this was right or this was wrong. But as I say, my opinion of the EU and the muscle and the power that it has to make sweeping changes that may not benefit this country, that's been evident in the last 2 years.
I would absolutely agree with that. Well, let us know what you think. gbviews@gbnews.uk. What did you vote in the referendum 6 years on, can you believe? And do you regret it? Do you see the benefits of Brexit at the moment? Or do you think actually it's too soon to tell, given what we've been through the last couple of years? Let us know. gbviews@gbnews.uk. But let's go to our top story this morning. Prime Minister Boris Johnson is in Rwanda for the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting.
He's expected to hold talks with Prince Charles today, the first time the two